Alright, in this video I'm going to be going over the final exam review. Now the problems I'm going to do are the same problems you're doing except they're in a different order, and also of course the numbers are different, but otherwise these are the same problems you're seeing in the review in my math lab. So for some of you, if you want to practice any of the problems, I would encourage you to do the problem and then watch the video where I give the answer. Now in some problems I'm just going to give you the answer, and in others that I have found students tend to miss more, I'll go over those in more detail. And as always, if you have any questions, you can email me and I will clarify whatever questions you have. Alright, so let's go ahead and get started. So on number 1, there's just a pattern here. And all of our patterns, we were either adding or subtracting some number repeatedly, or multiplying or dividing by some number repeatedly. In this case, we're multiplying by -6, and so you should have gotten C here. All right, let's look at number 2. Solve the problem with estimation. Do not use a calculator. Use rounding to make the resulting calculation simple. So you rent an apartment for $815 per month for 5 years. What's the total amount you paid in rent? Well, you're paying $815 per month, so that's 12 times a year for 5 years. So you're going to multiply those three numbers. Now, the idea with estimation is to try to get it so that you can do the multiplication in your head or without using a calculator. So let's go ahead and round 815 to 800. Now, some of you may recall that 12 times 5 is 60. And in fact, that's the estimation that they use here. I mean, they only estimated the 815. Some of you may use 10. But anyway, let me finish this out and I'll just point something out in regards to that. So this would be 48 with 3 zeros when you multiply that out. Now you wouldn't get 48,000 if you rounded this to 10, which is perfectly reasonable, but you can see either way this is the only answer that's going to be anywhere in the ballpark here. And so D is our answer. Let's go ahead and we'll also look at number 3. It says a college cafeteria pays student cashiers $10.30 per hour. Cashiers earn an additional $1.20 per hour for each hour worked over 35 hours per week. Usually it's much more than that for working extra, but sometimes you have to work 40 before you get those extra hours. A cashier worked 40 hours one week and 41 hours the second week. How much did this cashier earn in this 2-week period? Well, first of all, let's look at regular hours. It was 35 hours for 2 weeks. So that's a total of 70 hours that are going to be paid at $10.30. Whoops. So if you multiply that out, you get $721 even. Let's go ahead and figure out the overtime pay. So this was regular. Let's look at overtime pay. So the first week they worked 40 hours, which is 5 overtime hours. And in the second week, 41 hours, so they did 6 overtime hours. Excuse me. So they're going to get $10.30, their regular pay, plus an extra $1.20 per hour. So this becomes 11 times, and this is $11.50. And so we get $126.50. And if you add those two numbers up, you get $847.50, which is letter C. Now this is not the only way you could have done this problem, but this would certainly be one way to do it. All right, let's look at 4 and 5 on this first page. So this is one that students miss because it's actually, to me, it's a little bit tricky, but it's still reasonable. Notice we're supposed to determine if this is the empty set. It's X, the set X, such that X is the number of living U.S. presidents born before 1700. Well, there are no presidents that are currently living that were born before 1700. But notice it says the number. The number would be 0. And so really this is equal to the set with 0 in it, which is not the empty set, so we would say no. So be careful with a problem like that. List all the subsets of the given set. Well, remember, the empty set will be a subset, and also the set itself. And then we'd also need to include the set with just one element. That would be Siamese and domestic shorthair. So this would be option C here. All right, let's move on to the next page. All right, so it says in 6, use the Venn diagram to list the elements of the set in roster form. Well, if I want to find A intersect B complement, or the complement of A intersect B, what you might want to find first is A intersect B. Well, that's just the elements that are in both sets, or what the two sets have in common. That's 13 and 17. And so the set, the complement of that, is going to be all the elements except for 13 and 17, or basically all the elements in the universal set excluding 13 and 17. So we're going to have 11, 14, 12, 15, and 16, and then finally 18 and 19 here. All right, let's move on to, and by the way, that would be option B. All right, let's look at number 7. So if you read this, what it tells you is that each circle represents the number of students that scored 95% or better. And so you can see that for each of the 3 exams. Now it says use the Venn diagram to represent the set of students who scored 95% or above on exam 3. So that's everybody that's in here. And not on exam 1. So in other words, they can't be in the exam 1 circle. They did not score 95% or above. So that excludes these 2 people here. So we're just left with Eva, Al, and Flo. So that would be option B. All right. Number 8, it says at East Zone University, there are 690 students taking college algebra or calculus. 440 students take college algebra, 289 calculus, and 39 take both college algebra and calculus. How many students are taking college algebra but not calculus? Well, the way we would normally do this is we'd make a Venn diagram with overlapping circles. We got our college algebra circle and our calculus circle. And the way we normally start is we work inside out. And so the first thing I want to do is put in the students that are doing both college algebra and calculus. That's these 39 here. So if it says 440 are taking college algebra, then there's 440 in this whole circle, but we already have 39 here. Well, that would mean 401 are in here. Notice the total would be 440. So some of them are doing both, but there's a total of 440 that are taking college algebra. Similarly, here you have 289 students taking calculus, so you're going to want to subtract the 39 you already have, and that would leave you 250 here. Now, you could also find the amount that go in here, because you're told there's 690 students. You just subtract the numbers here. But actually, all we need to do is answer the question here. How many students are taking college algebra but not calculus? Well, it's everybody in here, but not these guys. So that's just 401. Number 9, form the negation of the statement below. Now, what I would do is, it says Stockholm is not the capital of Brazil. I would just cross off the not, and it would be Stockholm is the capital of Brazil. It's probably the most natural way, but you can always say it is not true, and then just write the rest of this, and that's another way to form the negation. And so A would be the correct answer here. So again, I want to remind you, you can always stop the computer or the video and do any of these problems before I give the solution if you want to practice. All right, let's move on to number 10. So given that P and Q each represents a simple statement, write the indicated compound statement in its symbolic form. So this is statement P, this is statement Q. If this is not, so this is an if-then statement, so we're going to have something implies something else. If this is not a brontosaurus, well, that would be not P. Then this is not a dinosaur. So not a dinosaur, that would be not Q. Not P implies not Q. And so we got A there. Write the statement in symbolic form to determine the truth value for the statement. All rock singers are extremely wealthy, or some professional football players drive a sports car. Well, I mean, we could call this statement P, or this would be statement Q. And an or statement is only true if one of these is, I should say it is true if one of the two statements is true. So all rock singers are extremely wealthy. Well, many have gone broke, so that's not always true, so it's not true. Some professional football players drive a sports car. Well, that's true. And so we have at least Q is true. I'd say this one is false because we can't say for certain that all are wealthy, extremely wealthy. But the statement's true since at least one of the statements is true. With an and statement, they both have to be true in order for the statement to be true. All right, let's look at number 12. So one of the things you need to know about the Babylonian system is, and this is not something that I'll tell you on the final, is that it's a base 60 system. So you have your ones place, and then the 60 to the first powers place, and then the 60 squareds place, and so on. Now in this case, you only have your ones place and your 60s place. Now each of these stand for 10, and each of these stand for 1, the V shapes. And so here we have 21 60s, or times 60, plus 2 times 1. And when you multiply that out, you should get 1262. All right, let's go on to number 13. All right, so it says use divisions to convert the base 10 numeral to a numeral. Whoops, sorry about that. My computer just went quiet there. Convert the base 10 numeral to a numeral in the given base. So this is 125, the number we know, it's a base 10 number, and we want to write it in base 3. Well, first of all, you should know your numerals. Well, there's going to be 3, 0, starting at 0, 1, and 2. And one thing we learned is if it's a base 3 system, there won't be a numeral for 3. And then if we look at our place values, we're going to have the ones place. The 3 to the first powers place, we'll just write 3. The 3 squareds place, the 3 cubes place, 3 to the 4th, 3 to the 5th. We could go a little ways, but we only need to go until we find the largest power of 3 that's less than 125. So let's see what that would be. We've got 1, 3, 9, 27, 81, and 3 to the 5th power is 243. You can see that's bigger than 125, and so we won't start there. We'll start with the 81. So what we're going to do is we want to find out how many 81s are in 125. So it'll be 125 divided by 81. Of course, that goes once. We'll get 4 and 4. And so next we'll take that remainder of 44 and we'll divide by the next place value, which is 27. Now 2 times 27 is 54, so there's only 127 in 44. And so I get a remainder of 17. And next we'll divide by 9. 9 times 1, 2 times 9 would be 18. So when we subtract, we get 8. And so we'll take that 8 and put it over here and divide by the next power, which is 3. And 3 times 2 would be 6, and we're left with the remainder of 2. And we'll divide that by our next place value, which is the ones place. Well, 1 goes into 2 2 times. 2 times 1 is 2. We get our remainder of 0. And so our answer is right here. It's going to be 1 1 1 2 2 base 3. 2 2 base 3. That would be option C there. All right, let's look at this last problem, and I think I'll stop here for the first video and I'll start another video. It'll probably be 2 or 3. So your Roman numerals, of course this is a 1, a V is a 5, an X represents 10, a D is 50, a C is 100, and M is 1,000. So these are the ones that you want to know. In this case, this is 1,000 plus, now we know that the 1 is a smaller unit than an X, so this is going to be 1 subtracted from 10, and so this will be plus 9. So we get 1,009, which is option C. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and stop this video here, and I'll start on number 15 in the next one.